The valley had run short of firewood before the winter even turned cruel, but the man dragging a sled loaded with granite boulders through knee-deep snow wasn't gathering fuel. Frost clung to his dark beard. The air bit deep enough to make a man's lungs ache, but Thomas didn't stop.
Still dragging your savage bedrocks, Thomas. You planning to sleep on them like an animal?
Thomas didn't answer. He just kept hauling the stones toward the fire pit, one granite slab after another.
He hasn't explained yet, but I've known him long enough to trust his strange silences.
Hannah, the fire's low. I need it hotter than a forge.
He rolled the boulders into the flames until they glowed like embers themselves.
Ha! Heating rocks won't save you any wood, you old fool. You'll just have a warm grave.
Let him laugh. He'll feel the difference before spring.
By nightfall, the stones were the hottest things on the mountain, and Thomas was only half done. Thomas left the fire pit and stepped into the shelter, where Hannah had been watching the glow from the door.
What are you planning with those stones, Thomas? Caleb's mockery isn't just noise, he's got half the valley listening.
I am going to bury them under our bed. Heat stored in stone lasts. We'll sleep warm on earth instead of burning wood all night.
Bury red-hot stone in our floor. You'll crack the earth and fill this room with a foul smoke.
Not if the pit's deep enough, and the stones are true granite. The earth seals the heat in. Trust me, Hannah.
He took the iron shovel and began to cut a shallow trench into the packed dirt floor.
I've never prayed for a rock bed to be right before.
The pit was longer than his body and just deep enough to swallow the heat without cracking under weight. Outside, the flames still roared, and the stones inside pulsed with a heat that could shatter if doused wrong.
They're ready. Help me rake them in before I lose the glow.
I am here. Show me how.
Thomas positioned the long wooden paddle and caught the first glowing stone, rolling it free of the coals.
Easy. Clear the path. Don't let it touch snow.
Step by step, they guided the hissing stones across the frozen ground and into the trench waiting inside. Then, Thomas took the shovel and began covering them, earth cascading over the cherry-red glow. A thick cloud of steam boiled upward, and the dog backed away, ears flat.
It smells like the world being born. Not foul at all.
The earth is sealing. Now the heat has nowhere to go but up.
Later, they stretched their bedrolls across the warm mound. The floor had become a hearth without flame.
Sleep, Hannah. We'll know if it held by the coldness of the morning.
Morning came, and the air inside the shelter was still sharp enough to frost the window. But the earth beneath their bedrolls was not cold.
Still warm. By noon, we'll know how much wood the night cost us.
Hannah crossed to the woodpile and stared. It looked as if they had burned nothing at all.
Thomas, we barely touched the stack. It's like the fire buried itself under us.
By mid-morning, Caleb was outside Thomas's door. The chimney breathed only a whisper of smoke, though the night had been savage.
Either you froze to death in there, Thomas, or your savage stones cooked you alive. Which is it?
Neither. Just a quiet night's rest. Maybe you ought to try it sometime.
Try sleeping on a rock bed. I'll keep my fireplace, thank you. At least I know when I am out of wood.
You'll know soon enough what being out of wood means, Caleb. Pray you don't find out before spring.
Caleb laughed, but the sound was thinner than before. He turned without another word and walked back into the snow. Weeks slid deeper into winter. Each night, Thomas heated stones and buried them while the valley's woodpiles shrank a little more each dawn. His own stack barely dipped. Neighbors who had once joked now eyed the tall pile with a mix of confusion and hunger. Caleb watched from his own frost-rimmed window, counting the days since he'd last seen Thomas cut more than an armload of wood.
I counted the loads you've hauled, Thomas. You haven't gathered half what I have, yet your smoke barely shows. Where are you hiding it?
It's no secret, Caleb. Come inside and I'll show you exactly where the fire sleeps. You might learn something.
Show me a rock bed? You mean your witch oven? I'll keep my own fire, and I'll keep my own fire, and I'll find the truth when your chimney smokes black from burning green wood.
He'd rather freeze than admit he's wrong.
Thomas turned back to his stones, the ritual now as natural as breathing. The valley whispered about him, but he no longer listened. But Caleb's suspicion didn't sleep. He kept tally, certain that Thomas had to be hiding something. The rift between them widened with every cold morning, and the wood shortage was not slowing. Then the northern sky flattened, and the temperature dropped like a stone. The valley locked into a cold that made seasoned timbers groan. A child from the far cabin was brought in with fingers white as wax. The frost had bitten deep before anyone noticed the fire had gone out. Inside Caleb's home, the walls were weeping frost. His wife wrapped her shawl tighter and broke the silence. She told him plain, "Go to Thomas. Whatever he's doing, it's warmer than this." But Caleb's jaw set like iron.
I will not beg a madman for his rock pile secret. We'll manage.
She turned away without another word, and the space between them grew colder than the room. Meanwhile, in Thomas's shelter, the earthen bed let off a steady warmth. He and Hannah sat with cups of tea, the dog sleeping peacefully.
The foolishness outside these walls is going to kill someone, Thomas.
I can't force a man to learn. He has to want it more than he fears looking weak.
Outside, the cold continued to tighten its grip, and the valley's woodpiles grew so thin you could count the remaining sticks. Thomas spent his daylight hours not gathering wood, but testing the pit. He dug deeper, measured the heat with a stick, and found the deeper the stones lay, the longer the warmth held.
Hannah, I've found the trick. Another foot of earth, and the stones don't just warm us, they hold till dawn without dropping.
Then the valley needs this now. Not next week, now. You've proven it works better than any fireplace.
They called it savage. Caleb still mocks it. If I offer now, they'll think I am saying I told you so.
Let them think what they will. A child's fingers nearly froze off yesterday. Pride won't warm their hands.
I am not proud, Hannah. I am tired of being the fool. They'll only listen when they're desperate enough to swallow their own words.
They are desperate now, Thomas. You just don't want to be the one to reach out first.
She's right. But every time I look outside, I still hear Caleb's laugh echoing across the snow.
He stared at the buried stones in his mind, a cross-section of earth and fire that could save the valley, if only he could bury his resentment alongside them. The cold outside didn't wait for his decision. Smoke grew thinner from neighbor chimneys, and the mountain didn't care who won the argument. The storm descended mid-afternoon, a white wall that swallowed trees and erased the trail. Before dusk, the heavy snow load tore through the roof of the Henderson place with a sound like splitting timbers. Those who escaped the ruin fled through the whiteout, their own cabins now too cold and too dangerous. Thomas's door burst open against the wind, and a clutch of frozen souls stumbled inside, Caleb among them. The shelter was dim, but a strange warmth rose from the floor. A neighbor's hand touched the earth and drew back in disbelief. The dirt was warm as living skin. A murmur passed through the crowd.
It's buried hot stones. They've kept this floor warm every night since autumn. No sorcery, just stone and earth.
The words hung in the air. Caleb didn't speak. He just stared at the floor, feeling the heat through his boots.
And we've used less than half the wood you have, Caleb. This floor is why.
Outside, the blizzard howled. But inside, for the first time, the valley's secret was no longer Thomas's alone. The blizzard passed, but the wood did not. Families choked on green saplings that hissed and smoldered, filling homes with bitter smoke. In Caleb's own house, the air was thick with acrid smoke. His children coughed by a fire that gave more sting than warmth. Caleb looked at his wife's silent, shivering figure. The truth he'd been running from stood in that room like frost on stone. At Thomas's door, he stood with nothing left but the weight of his own stubbornness.
Thomas, I was wrong about the stones. Show me how you do it.
Say it again, Caleb. Say it loud enough that every man who mocked me can hear it from here.
I was a fool. The stones work, and I was too proud to see it. Now my family is freezing. Please.
Thomas lifted a granite stone from beside the door, holding it so Caleb could see its weight.
You'll need stones like these, and a pit deep enough to bury your pride. Be here at dawn, and I'll teach you.
Caleb nodded, and for the first time in months, the air between them didn't taste of mockery. It tasted of cold and something else, a chance. At dawn, Thomas led Caleb to the fire pit and placed a granite stone in his hands.
This is the bedrock, not creek pebbles, not field stones. Granite holds the heat without cracking.
He showed how deep the earth needed to be, a full arm's reach, and how to layer the stones so they didn't touch. Caleb dug his own pit, but the hole was barely past his wrist. He chose smaller stones, ones that fit the hole with less work.
It'll still work. I am not wasting daylight on a grave.
That night, his family laid down on the mound, but by midnight, the warmth had vanished.
You taught me wrong. The heat died before the moon even set.
I taught you right. You didn't listen. Your hole was shallow, your stones puny. The earth won't hold what you don't give it.
Caleb stood in the cold, the failure stinging worse than the frost.
Go deeper tomorrow. Use stones the size of your head. The earth doesn't cheat, Caleb. Men do.
Thomas did not leave Caleb to his stubbornness. He came to the man's own floor and drove the shovel into the earth himself.
Like this, Caleb. Twice the depth you tried. The soil needs to swallow the stone completely.
Together, they laid the granite boulders, each one a head-sized weight of captured fire, and sealed them beneath a thick blanket of earth. That night, Caleb's wife pressed her palm to the covered mound and wept without a sound. The children slept through till dawn without a shiver, and the woodpile stood untouched. In the gray morning, Caleb found Thomas splitting kindling. The words came out before pride could stop them.
Thomas, you were right about the stones. I was blind. Thank you.
Half a dozen neighbors, out gathering what sticks they could find, stopped to listen.
The pit works. If you want, I'll show you how it's done.
The invitation hung in the frozen air. For the first time, the valley didn't laugh. It just listened. By noon, a dozen neighbors stood around Thomas's fire pit, shovels in hand or hands in pockets, all waiting to see if the madman's trick was real.
The stone must be granite. You'll know it by the weight and the way it rings when struck. Heat that, and it holds like a promise.
Some scratched diagrams in the snow. Others whispered that this was still savage nonsense, just dressed in patience.
I didn't ask you to believe. I ask you to dig and to sleep. The earth will do the talking.
One farmer, impatient, dug a pit, barely past his knee, and filled it with creek pebbles. By midnight, his wife shivered him awake.
You cut the depth by half. The heat bled into the air before the moon rose. Do it again, properly.
Thomas, let him rest. You can't teach if you've broken every man's pride.
Pride nearly killed Caleb. I can't let it kill others.
By week's end, 4 cabins had warm mounds, 2 still burned green wood, and one old woman called it witchcraft. But she kept her gloves on. The method was no longer Thomas's secret. It was a rough, stubborn, piecemeal craft, spreading from door to door like a rumor of spring. Word of the warm floors had spread, and so Thomas drew a circle of neighbors close and reached behind the hearth for something he'd kept hidden since autumn.
The method isn't mine. It's older than any cabin in this valley. My grandfather learned it from the tribes who've done this for 1,000 winters.
The book fell open to a yellowed page where careful ink strokes showed the cross-section of a sweat lodge, stones buried deep, steam rising.
They called it the stone that remembers. Heat it once, and the earth holds it like a mother. The cabins came, and we forgot.
I called it savage, but the savages were us, forgetting what the land had always known.
A stillness fell over the room that had nothing to do with the cold. The people who had mocked were looking at the ground.
This is the bedrock. Not my invention, not a trick, just the old way. And if we're still here, come spring, it's because we finally remembered to listen to it.
No one laughed. No one whispered. The book passed from hand to hand like a fragile coal. Outside, the cold ground was still frozen solid. But inside, the truth had finally thawed the oldest ice of all. The winter was not done. The deepest cold still lay ahead. But the method now had a name older than mockery, and a memory longer than the oldest fool. It happened at dusk. A man in too great a hurry rolled a glowing stone against a dry wood corner. The flame caught faster than frostbite. By the time neighbors reached it, the wall was alive with fire, and blame spread before the smoke cleared.
They're saying it's your fault, Thomas, that your stones are a fire waiting to happen.
I never said the stones were safe for fools. You have to respect the heat, or it'll eat your house. From now on, every stone is moved with a wooden rake, not hands, and the pit must be deeper than your fear of cold.
He knelt in the snow and drew a diagram with a charred stick. Pit depth, proper stone spacing, earth cover to choke the flame.
And if a stone cracked in the fire from hidden water, don't use it. It'll split in the bed and send a dangerous heat spike through the earth.
The crowd, still panting from the panic, listened now without a murmur. The lesson had cost them a wall, not a life. From that evening, no cabin lit a stone bed without Thomas's 3 rules. Granite only, depth to the elbow, cover till no steam. The near catastrophe became the iron that tempered the method. Even the scoffers carried the rules like scripture now. The last woodpile in the valley stood empty, not a stick left to burn. Families gathered granite stones instead of logs, their hands trembling from the weight of what they now had to trust.
To everyone here, I was a fool. The man I mocked saved my life, and the stones I called savage are now the only warmth left in this valley. My children sleep warm tonight because of buried rock. Don't let pride freeze yours.
I didn't save you, Caleb. I just remembered what our grandfathers knew. The stones were always here, waiting for us to listen.
The pits are ready. We have enough. No one freezes tonight if we share the fire and the earth.
That night, the valley was heated not by flame, but by the slow, steady breath of buried stone.
The deepest cold hasn't come yet, but we'll meet it with stone.
A dozen mounds steamed quietly in the darkness, the soft hiss answering the winter wind like a promise kept. The old way had become their only shield. Now it faced the deepest cold the mountain had ever sent. The cold descended so deep that trees cracked like rifle shots. Nothing but stone and soil could stand against it. Families abandoned their separate cabins and carried their bedrolls to the largest shelter, where the mound already steamed. Inside, piles of granite glowed under the earth. The air was thick with the scent of warm dirt and living breath.
You were right, Thomas. Every single one of them is here because you didn't stop.
The stones were right, not me. I just listened long enough to hear what the earth was telling us.
Caleb's children slept in the crook of their mother's arm, their faces peaceful for the first time in weeks.
I used to think a man proved himself by standing alone. Now I see the strongest walls are built together.
We all just sleeping on the same rock now. That's the old way.
The night stretched on, and the cold outside pressed against the walls. But the stone beneath them gave back more than it took. The mountain's worst was still to come, but the valley had learned that cold could be shared and warmth multiplied. After a week of constant heating, the weaker stones began to split. In 3 different pits, cracks spidered through the rock like dark vines. People whispered that the old way was failing, that the stone would give out before the cold did.
It's not the method that's failing. It's the stone. Not all rock is equal. We need to find which one remembers without breaking.
He gathered samples from every corner of the valley, creek pebbles, field stones, the gray-black granite from the river bend. He heated them, quenched them, heated again. Only the true granite came through without a single flaw.
Granite from the creek. It's the only stone that will carry our fire through the whole winter. We need to haul enough for every pit.
By noon, a line of men and women followed Thomas's tracks to the frozen creek, where the boulders lay like buried promises. they broke them free with sledges and rolled them onto sleds, the sound of stone on stone ringing through the cold silence. That night, new granite boulders glowed in every fire pit. The stone that remembered finally remembered by the people. The method had nearly cracked, but Thomas had proven again that the old way wasn't fragile. It just needed the right stone. The coldest night of the year arrived. Thermometers failed, and the air itself seemed to splinter, but the mounds steamed on.
It's cooling, Thomas. I can feel it through the wool.
Good. That means the stone is giving back what we gave it. We'll see morning.
Dawn came frozen. Then a child's cry cut the silence. All alive, the news leapfrogged from shelter to shelter. Doors flung open. People rushed out, breath clouding, counting heads. Not one frozen.
To Thomas, who buried the fire and kept it alive without a single log.
Tin cups raised across the snow, and for the first time in months, the laughter wasn't mockery.
The stones did the work, but the valley remembered to trust them.
And they'll remember next winter, too.
Thomas said nothing, only looked toward the mountains, knowing the old way would now outlast them all. Icicles wept themselves away. The snow pulled back from the cabin logs, leaving dark, wet wood. The wood piles, so carefully guarded, now sat uncovered, kept only for the cook stove.
Look, Thomas. They're digging pits beside the new foundations before they even raise the walls.
It's no longer my method. It's just the way we build now.
Every new cabin had a bed of stone designed into the floor. The pits were no longer secrets. They were the first stones laid. From the valley floor, Thomas could see a dozen chimneys where once there had been only smoke from green wood. Now they only burned for morning tea.
You are not a madman now. You are the wisest elder this valley has.
I am just a man who remembered that stone holds memory. The stone is the elder, not me.
A child saw him and waved, then ran to inspect the old fire pit, now filled with grass and wildflowers. The method had become tradition before the spring flowers even bloomed. Thomas called them together at the new common fire pit, the book in his hands.
My grandfather learned this from the people of the mountains. Before cabins, they heated stones in a ring and slept on the earth.
He opened the brittle pages to the sweat lodge diagram, the smoke from the new fire twisting into the spring sky.
They shared it with him so we could survive. It was never my secret to keep.
A silence fell, and the word savage seemed to hang in the air like a bitter smoke.
We called it savage, but the savages were the ones who forgot. I am ashamed.
Heads nodded across the circle. No one met Caleb's eyes, but everyone understood.
From now on, every fire we lay honors them. The stone remembers. So will we.
The fire crackled, and the ancient drawing seemed to glow with new life. In that clearing, the old way crossed from memory into law. They walked by the creek's edge where the ice had finally given way to clear water. The dog raced ahead, nosing at the first green shoots like they were old friends. They passed the old fire pit, now cold and dark, its stones still buried deep. The dog circled the mound once, sniffed, and then lay down where the heat used to rise.
Will they remember next winter, Thomas?
They'll remember, not because it's written down, but because they'll feel it in their bones when the cold comes back.
He didn't look back. He looked forward, toward the valley greening under a forgiving sky.
Then the stones have taught us all something, haven't they?
They taught us that warmth doesn't have to burn. It can be buried, and it can last.
And they walked on, side by side, into a spring that remembered the winter and was not afraid. Buried hot stones in a pit, sealed under earth that breathed slowly. Stone holds warmth when fire goes cold. The earth is the keeper. The same pit, now covered in grass, its stones dark but still deep, wild flowers rooted where the heat once rose, feeding on the memory. The valley spread green, cabins rebuilt with stone beds in every floor. Chimneys only burned for cooking, not for staying alive. Golden lights spilled over the mountains, no longer a threat, and the people walked into a spring that trusted the stone, buried hot stones in a pit, and slept above them. His shelter held heat long after the fire died.